Today marks two occasions. First, it is the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, and is thus a holy day of obligation. So, get to Mass. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, really. The Assumption was formally defined by Pope Pius XII towards the ends of his pontificate, but it had been a Catholic dogma since the start. Remember, popes only define dogmas. They don't change, alter, or invent them, no matter what some people outside the church, or even a few seem to think inside the church. So get to Mass today and say a prayer for the coming catastrophes in the church and the conversion of heart of all these public figures we usually talk about on this channel. Remember, prayer and penance are our best weapons in this spiritual war that we've all found ourselves in the middle of. So get to Mass and say some prayers for the souls of those who are continuing the revolution in the church. The second event marking today is the start of the U.S. Grace Force's 54-day Novena of Novenas. That novena begins today, August 15th, and runs through October 7th, which you might be aware enters into the early days of the Pan-Amazonian Synod that will change everything in the church according to the Synod Fathers so far. Today, we're going to go over what the intentions are of the Novena of Novenas and its format, given that it's a little bit more than your typical Holy Rosary. However, we have a good quote here explaining the logic of it from the Roman Catholic Man blog, and they are quoting Cardinal Burke. So here's some of the logic behind it. There is no question that we are living in the most troubled times. Fundamental truths about human life, about marriage and the family, and about the conscience are being called into question by threatening the lives of individuals and of our society. But we are full of courage because we know that our Lord is with us. He called us to be his soldiers on the ground, working with him for the salvation of the world. There is a 54-day novena beginning on the solemnity of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which will be completed on October 7th. Your prayer would be even more efficacious if you would take part in that 54-day novena. End quote. That 54-day novena begins today. But we're going to add an intention to the novena as well. It's perfectly licit and fine to add intentions to this, but first I want to mention something. Some people seem uncomfortable with the idea of praying for their nation. Remember, this isn't a prayer for America only per se. I mean, the blog's focus are for American Catholics, but the logic of it can apply to anywhere. It's a prayer campaign for your country, wherever that is. If you are in a Western country, there is no question that your prayers and mine are needed. Perhaps the most patriotic thing you can do is to pray for your country in this time of universal deceit, conspiracy theories being peddled by the media and the political elites, and then real-life conspiracy theories coming to life in front of us with the elites pretending that all is normal when men die in their jail cells before they go and testify before courts about the political elites and their machinations. And, of course, increasing political violence in the streets all across the Western world. This, on top of the rather normalized institutional Moloch worship that is now taxpayer-funded. So, yes, your countries and mine need our prayers. I'll go over the intention from the Roman Catholic Man blog at the end of this video. Instead, let's have some context. And I'm going to quote that blog post for this novena to describe the origins of this 54-day Novena of Novenas. It's a story that most of us simply have never heard. So I'm going to quote the blog directly. Quote, on March 3rd, 1884, in the same year that Pope Leo XIII wrote the prayer to St. Michael, and exactly 33 years before the Fatima apparitions, a young girl named Fortuna Agrelli was graced with an apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and given this special devotion which she passed on to others. At the time, young Fortuna was ill with 3 separate incurable diseases, and her doctors had given up on her case, saying it was hopeless. In desperation, the young girl and her family began a novena of rosaries. Our Lady appeared to the girl, sitting upon a high throne, surrounded by luminous figures, holding the divine child on her lap, and in her hand a rosary. The sick girl greeted the Blessed Virgin with the following words, Queen of the Holy Rosary, be gracious to me. Restore me to health. I have already prayed to thee in a novena, O Mary, but have yet experienced thy aid. I am so anxious to be cured. Child, responded the Blessed Virgin, you have invoked me by various titles and have always obtained favors from me. Now, since you call me by that title so pleasing to me, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary, I can no longer refuse the favor of your petition, for this name is most precious and dear to me. Make 3 novenas, and you shall obtain all. Once more, the Queen of the Holy Rosary appeared to the young girl and said, Whoever desires to obtain favors from me should make 3 novenas of the prayers of the Rosary, and 3 novenas in thanksgiving. Obeying Our Lady's instructions, the young girl was healed and restored to perfect health. End quote. That is definitely an interesting story to say the least, and for some reason people don't understand or don't pass this on, and never focus on how it seems to be directly tied to both the St. Michael prayer and the Fatima apparitions. But perhaps that's for another time. Anyway, here's how this thing works. From the Roman Catholic Man blog, quote, "The novena consists of 5 decades of the Rosary, one set of mysteries each day for 27 days in petition, then immediately 5 decades each for an additional 27 days in thanksgiving, regardless of whether or not the request has been granted yet. To do the novena properly, one must pray the Rosary for 54 consecutive days, without missing a day, and must pray the particular mystery indicated for that day following the correct sequence. That is, the first day of the novena always begins with the joyful mysteries, regardless of what day of the week the novena is starting. The second day, the sorrowful mysteries are prayed, and the third day of the novena, the glorious mysteries are prayed. The fourth day of the novena begins again with the joyful mysteries and continues on in that sequence throughout the 54 days of the novena." There is a chart on that blog. People have asked over time about the luminous mysteries. This novena was given by Our Lady as noted above in 1884 and only allows for the joyful, sorrowful, and glorious mysteries. End quote. But if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you probably aren't praying the optional luminous mysteries anyway, taking Pope John Paul II at his word that the luminous mysteries were in fact optional, even if everyone has since treated them as if they were de facto part of the Rosary. But that'd be an error, but that is, of course, a topic for a different day. We're going to go over the particular prayers that have been added to this Rosary. I'm only going to go over the Rosary intentions for the joyful mysteries, because this video would take forever if I did all three. The particular mystery schedule is on the same blog piece and can be easily followed. So here's how the whole thing works. First is the particular petition associated with each mystery. On the days of the joyful mysteries, the petition prayer for the first 27 days is as followed. Again, this happens before you really dive into the Rosary. Hail, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary, my Mother Mary, hail. At thy feet I humbly kneel to offer thee a crown of roses, snow-white buds to remind thee of thy joys, each bud calling to thee a holy mystery, each 10 bound together with my petition for particular grace. O Holy Queen, dispenser of God's graces, and Mother of all who invoke thee, thou canst not look upon my gift and fail to see its binding. As thou receivest my gift, so wilt thou receive my petition. From thy bounty thou wilt give me the favor I so earnestly and trustingly seek. I despair of nothing that I ask of thee. Show thyself my mother. Now, for the second 27 days of the joyful mysteries, the Thanksgiving prayer is also as follows. Hail, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary, my Mother Mary, hail. At thy feet I gratefully kneel to offer thee a crown of roses, snow-white buds to remind thee of thy joys, each bud recalling to thee a holy mystery, each 10 bound together with my petition for particular grace. O Holy Queen, dispenser of God's graces, and Mother of all who invoke thee, thou canst not look upon my gift and fail to see its binding. As thou receivest my gift, so wilt thou receive my thanksgiving. From thy bounty thou hast given me the favor I so earnestly and trustingly sought. I despaired not of what I asked of thee, and thou hast truly shown thyself my mother. Now, as an aside, some people might object, thinking these sound pretty bold, but remember, the Our Father that was presented by our Lord is actually a very bold prayer if you understand the context of it and how it must have sounded to the ears of the apostles. But anyway, after each decade you have these prayers. For the Annunciation, again, these are after the prayers of the Our Father, then the 10 Hail Marys and the Glory Be. After the Glory Be, you have a concluding prayer. For the joyful mysteries, it is, I bind these snow-white buds with a petition for the virtue of humility and humbly lay this bouquet at thy feet. The Visitation, I bind these snow-white buds with a petition for the virtue of charity and humbly lay this bouquet at thy feet. The Nativity, I bind these snow-white buds with a petition for the virtue of detachment from the world and humbly lay this bouquet at thy feet. The Presentation, I bind these snow-white buds with a petition for the virtue of purity and humbly lay this bouquet at thy feet. And for the finding of the child Jesus, I bind these snow-white buds with a petition for the virtue of obedience to the will of God, and humbly lay this bouquet at thy feet. Then the Rosary ends with the Hail, Holy Queen, followed by another particular petition for the first 27 days. Sweet Mother Mary, I offer thee this spiritual communion to bind my bouquets in a wreath to place upon thy brow. O my Mother, look with favor upon my gift, and in thy love obtain for me the request, which we'll get to in a moment, followed by an additional Hail Mary. For the second 27 days, in thanksgiving, the prayer is, Sweet Mother Mary, I offer thee the spiritual communion to bind my bouquets and a wreath to place upon thy brow, in thanksgiving for the specific request, which thou in thy love hast obtained for me, followed by a Hail Mary. If that all sounds confusing, don't worry. The format for the prayers on the Roman Catholic Man blog. A link is on the sources blog for this channel, as well as on the community page for this channel, as well as in the pinned comment below. So, the particular intentions. The Roman Catholic Man blog doesn't explicitly list the intention that's easily defined for some reason, but what I can gather is this, that the intention is that your country return to God. Pretty simple. For most of his readers and my subscribers, that would be the United States. But again, for those outside the U.S., your country pretty obviously needs these prayers as well. If you pay attention to the international news at all, the whole Western world is a mess, and much of the Eastern world is as well. Our added intention will be that the Amazon Synod and the bishops participating reject the errors of paganism, modernism, and instead prevent the errors of the instrumentum laboris, and that the church can weather this storm without the loss of souls. A little more complicated, but I mean, again, not that hard. So, are you going to join us? Like I said, the link to the Novena of Novenas and its format is in the pinned comments below, as well as on the community page of this channel, as well as on the sources blog returntotradition.org. Follow the schedule of prayers and please join us and the 50,000 people who have signed up for the U.S. Grace Force in prayer. Prayers in community can be quite powerful, and Father Heilman has on his blog the coincidences, if you can call them that occurred during each and after his past prayer campaigns going back to 2016. I hope that you'll join us and stick to this prayer format. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.